Join me on this journey as I share with you my top 10 favorite places I liked exploring in 2021. Also, there'll be some pictures of the locations before they went abandoned, and also, yes, there will be history of that location. Number 1, Broderick Heights Ski Area. Located a few miles west of Frederick, Maryland, the Broderick Heights ski area did not offer a great vertical. Several DC ski readers remember the vertical being about 300 feet, but it offered a location very close to Washington, D.C. region, and many have fond memories of visiting the area. Jim Kennedy estimates that the ski area shut down around 1985, although we don't have a specific record of the final closing date. In the DC Ski message forum, Andy writes, I remember having fun, but I had wished my dad would have taken us to Big Mountain at Liberty. Richard White writes, I went there for dinner one day and took a walk through the woods to look for the lost ski slope. Found the cable and some ghostly chairs. At the bottom was looked like an early 50s pickup with a bizarre rim that looked like the power for the lift, almost Blair Witch-like. TCS wrote in to say that the name of the area was originally just Skiway, changing it to Broderick Heights Skiway later on. According to this 1994 edition of the Lost Colorado Ski Areas newsletter, which included a section in the mid-Atlantic areas, the name changed accordingly in 1966. TSC remembering the area called Strudel Run, and the newsletter also refers to an obstacle course next to Broderick Heights with that name. The newsletter concluded that it was probably the same area as Broderick Heights, as the two areas shared the same phone number. Number 2, Old Town Mall. Old Town Mall and Gay Street started to become a retail area when the city of Baltimore built the Bel Air Market in 1818. The 6 markets to be constructed. Bel Air was designed to be a relief farmers market to serve the increasing commercial operations surrounding the area. The market helped boost business in Old Town, and the area became a diverse, bustling middle-class neighborhood, and the proximity to the city center made it an ideal place for families and downtown workers to live. Isaac Benanshi's great store was here, but when the post-war era beckoned to families to the suburbs, Gay Street suffered greatly. The population near the street fell, and Old Town became one of the poorest areas of the city. Without its customer base, the shops on the street were forced to close or adapt to a new customer dynamic. Redevelopment in decline. The Baltimore riot of 1968 was a turning point in the area. The city of Baltimore used the diversion as a way to revise Gay Street. Developers decided to convert the street into a pedestrian-only zone and name it Old Town Mall. The street was repaved with bricks, planters, street lamps, and trees were added, and even a fountain was installed in the center along the clock tower that would bear the name of the mall. More than $1.7 million had been spent on the project. In the late 1960s, the area opened with much fanfare. Government officials from across the county were in attendance. One newspaper wrote that good things are happening in Old Town. By 1980, the area had already started reimbursing what it looked like before the realization. due to the fact that the city didn't remedy high unemployment and poverty in Old Town. A few unsuccessful attempts were made to bring back life to the area. One involving tearing down the Bel Air Market to build a parking lot in hopes that a major grocery store chain would build a location at the mall. The area has mostly been unchanged since then. The mall once contained a 40,000 square foot, or also a 3,700 m Kluman's department store in the former Banshee's business only anchor. Today, a haunted house operates from the building each October since 2015. Number 3. Camp Hero. The site known as Camp Hero, or the Montauk Air Force Station, was originally commissioned by the U.S. Army in 1942. Camp Hero was originally a coastal defense station that was designed with a fishing village, and its location was chosen to prevent a potential invasion of New York from sea. Camp Hero was named after Major General Andrew Hero Jr., who was the Army commander of the Coastal Artillery and who died in 1942. 3 gun batteries were built at Camp Hero, replacing most of the other heavy guns in the harbor defense of Long Island Sound, which also included Fort H.G. Wright, Fort Machete, and Fort Terry. 2 batteries of 2 16-inch guns each were built, batteries 112 and 113, officially named Battery Dunn. Another battery of 2 6-inch guns were also built, Battery 216. All 3 batteries consisted mainly of 3 large concrete bunker covering the earth, containing ammunition magazines and fire control equipment. The 16-inch guns were protected by large chestmates, the 6-inch guns by shield. In 1992, Patterson Nichols and Peter Moon wrote the Montauk Project Experiments in Time, in which they alleged that secret experiments were carried out at Camp Hero's site. The book was popular with conspiracy theories and spawned several sequels. Post-military use. In 1984, the General Service Administration attempted to sell the entire facility to real estate developers. Local environmentalist activists protested, claiming that the site had many unique ecosystems and animal habitats. The remaining portions of the military reservation at Montauk were described as most of the facility, including Camp Hero, was donated to the National Park Service, which then turned over to the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historical Preservation. Portions not demanded environmental sanctuaries were sold off. Camp Hero remained largely undeveloped throughout the 1980s and 1990s. In 1996, a feasible study was undertaken for developing the site as a golf course. However, environmentalists were concerned that a golf course would impact the rare species of plants and endangered wildlife, such as blue-spotted salamanders and eastern tiger salamanders, and the inauguration would deplete limited sources of groundwater on the peninsula. Although there was demand to create a new golf courses on Long Island, particularly on the east end, the idea of creating a new golf course in Montauk, in addition to the Montauk Downs State Park, was dropped in 1990. Number 4. Sellers Mansion. The mansion was constructed in 1868 by Edward Davis as the principal's residence for Matthew Bacon Sellers Sr., 1800 to 1880, and his second wife, Anna Leathers Lewis Sellers, 1842 to 1913. Sellers was a former slave owner from Louisiana who sold his holdings and moved to Baltimore after the Civil War. In Baltimore, he became president of the Northeastern Railroad. In keeping with the genade of his southern plantation, Sellers bought an unusual large lot on the precipice Lafayette Square in Harlem Park neighborhood. Being on the square was a sign of privilege, and because row houses were the norm, the detached mansions set as apart. The recent constructed square was considered a premier location for the upper middle class and professional classes. The mansion was the first parcel sold on the east side of the square. It was one of the most fashionable places to be in the city. Seller and his wife, now a widow, bought the land once owned by the family near Kentucky, named Blakemore, and used it as a country retreat while keeping Baltimore as her primary residence. Seller's mansion was the birthplace of a primary residence of aviation pioneer Matthew Bacon Seller Jr., 1869 to 1932, the son of Sellers Sr. and Angela Sellers. He lived in the mansion until 1918. Harlem Park transitioned to a black neighborhood by the 1920s. By the late 1950s, the area was abandoned by the middle class who fled the city for the suburbs, and the mansion was its enormous suffered along with an incredible despite western Baltimore. Samuel Sellers, 1874 to 1954, and Annabelle Sellers, 1879 to 1953. The younger children of Sellers Sr. lived their entire lives at the mansion and were never professionally employed, living off their substantial inheritance. In their later years, from 1930 onward, they became recluded, recently living on the premises, having food brought in by helpful neighbors, and taking occasional strolls in Lafayette Square. Despite their wealth, they were visually known in Baltimore for unsocial events. They hoarding, according to a nephew. The family never threw anything away. Annabelle Sellers died in 1953, and Samuel Sellers followed less than a year later. Samuel was found in the house by a nephew, his body slumped in a chair, clothed in a 20-year-old suit he wore consistently. The mansion was stocked with antiques, including stacks of Confederate money and elaborate and costly European clothes, some never even worn in pristine condition. Bags of diamonds were found hidden in stacks of sheets. The house was sold at auction to spectators in March 1955 for $20,600 by the nephew, the oldest son of the Sellers Jr. After the auction, the mansion became the headquarters of the City Commission on Urban Renewal. In the late 1960s, the home was threatened with demolition to make way for a parking lot for the St. James Terrace apartments. Other arrangements were made for parking, and the mansion was restored and was used as a community center from 1967 to 1980. Operation CHAMP was run from Sellers Mansion, with 3 mobile units delivering games and playground equipment to neighbors across the city. These trucks took over city streets and turned them into pop-up playgrounds for a day. It was sponsored by the Baltimore City Recreation and Parks, with the support of federal funds. By the early 1990s, the mansion had become abandoned. Sellers Mansion had listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 2001. For the time, the property was owned by the St. James Episcopal Church, also on Lafayette Square. As of 2015, the mansion was owned by the nonprofit One House at a Time. This place is now been demolished. Number 5. Sparks Elementary School. Sparks was built in 1909. Built from local stone as Sparks Agricultural High School, believed the first vocational high school socializing in agriculture in the county. 1927. In 1927, classes added to the back of the building. In 1936, classrooms and offices added to back and front, along with facade featuring 3 stone arches. In 1954, Sparks became elementary school after the opening of Hartford High School. In 1971, the building was renovated. 1990 to 1993, portable classrooms added as school swells to 450 students. In 1993, one-third of the students transferred to the newly opened Jacksonville Elementary School. On January 8, 1995, Spark Elementary School destroyed by a fire. Number 6. The lost town of Warren, Maryland. In 1920, Warren was one of the most productive and vibrant towns in Baltimore County. By 1922, it had been leveled and flooded under 45 feet of water. The town was owned by the Summerfield Baldwins, who ran the Warren Manufacturing Company. The town had 900 residents who ran 2 mills. Warren was a major textile producer and industrial hub for Baltimore County. That all changed in 1922, when the city of Baltimore purchased the town in order to flood the property, to increase the size of the reservoir. The nearby town of Phoenix, Maryland, was also sold, but was eventually spread of flooding and still exists. Today, the Warren Cotton Mill shut down on February 15, 1922, and by the end of that same year, the town was gone. Life in Warren wasn't unlike life in other manufacturing towns. And the turn of the century, the majority of the town's residents were also the employees. The town had a school, church, homes, shops, and its own main street. A resident might spend their majority of their lives inside the town or in close proximity. Warren may have become an even more important town to the area it had not been flooded out. Its existence had been forgotten, even though they say it's all gone. This is what remains. Number 7. Glen Ellen Castle. Originally designed planned in 1832, Robert Gilmore III purchased about 900 acres of land at the modern-day site of Loch Raven. He divided the land into 2 different parts, calling the Rocky Hill area Raven Rock, and the Green Valley below Newmarket. On the border between the two, he built Glen Ellen Castle in a Gothic revival tradition of architecture, complete with soaring towers and Gothic windows. The manor looked like a little castle perched on the edge of the valley. The first small dam was built in the 1880s, marking of the beginning of the decline of the Glen Ellen estate. By 1923, a larger dam had been built, flooding the Newmarket portion of the estate and casting the vast lake now known as Loch Raven. The water rose within a few hundred feet of the step of the castle. Because of the reservoir, the estate had to be abandoned, and it quickly fell into ruin. Pieces of the castle were saved and moved to other buildings, most notably the Castles on Falls Road. Because of the safety risk, the castle was finally knocked down in 1930. Only ruins of the foundation remain. I've always loved the sound of the name Loch Raven, and I thought it would be a great name to give a setting in a book. After doing some research into the history of the area, however, I found many other things that made Loch Raven a special place. The manor used in my book is based on the plans and photos of Glen Ellen, but it's not an exact replica. The breakfast room is located in the castle's original parlor room, which didn't have nearly as many windows and opening up into a large porch on the plans for the castle. A large vista is described, and I decided to use this instead of the porch. Number 8. Lake Forest Mall. Formerly the Lake Forest Region Mall, also known as Lake Forest, is an abandoned closed shopping mall located in Gaithersburg, Maryland. The property is currently owned by WRS Inc., real estate investors who are planning to redevelop the site. The mall closed to the public on March 31st, 2023. The mall featured a food court and until 2013, formerly a large children's play area at the center. Following the closure of the 3 of its 4 anchor stores, JCPenney, Lord & Taylor, and Sears, in 2019. Macy's remained as the mall's final remaining anchor store until 2023, with the rest of the mall closing shortly after. Following its closure, the mall is set to be demolished the following year at the soonest. History: 1970s. Lake Forest Mall first opened on September 12, 1978 as Lake Forest Region Mall. At that time, the mall's anchor stores were JCPenney, Sears, Woodward and Lofts, and Hex. The mall was named in honor of Lake Walker, a man-made lake and park on the property prior. The mall operated with approximately 30 to 50 stores, with some of the first stores being relocated from then nearby indoor Village Mall, now an outdoor strip mall called Montgomery Village Center, since 1991, and absorbed into the feature an indoor ice skating rink on the lower level in the H section, along with being the biggest indoor shopping mall in the county. At that time, the grand opening, the rink was replaced first by a miniature theater movie complex, and then a food court, which remained until closing. 1980s. In 1984, the ice rink was replaced by NIT Theaters Movie Theater, later renamed Cineplex or Urban Forest 5. 1990s. 1994, the general manager was Barbara Kuska. In 1995, the Wood and North at the mall closed and was replaced by Lord & Taylor in 1996. Lake Forest was hosted to a Friendly's and a Long John Silver during the 1990s. They have been since closed down. On August 20th, 1998, Turbine Centers sold the property to GM Pattison Trust. Crya, September 1998. Some parking lot spaces were devoted to becoming the Lake Forest Transit Center with a park and ride. 2000. In January 2000, the Cineplex Origin Forest 5 movie theater closed. In November 2000, a food court called Cafes on the Forest was introduced, where the Cineplex Origin Lake Forest 5 movie theater once was, and started out with 9 food businesses, with roughly half a dozen food eateries already in the mall prior to the food court. Several full-service restaurants operating in the mall over the years included Chi-Chi's, Ruby Tuesdays, Red Robin's, and Silver Diner. In 2003, Simon Property Group purchased the mall. On May 28, 2006, Macy's replaced Hex, which had been required by Macy's patented company nationwide. Originally developed, owned, and operated by the Turbine Centers, the mall had been owned and managed by the Simon Property Group since 2007, when it purchased the former own and manager Mills Corporation. The company defaulted on its mortgage in 2011, and the mall was put up for sale after. 2010s. Lake Forest Mall Center Court in 2010. The Depression Carpet Amphitheater area was removed in 2013 and paved over. In 2011, the mall was a home to a miniature train ride that drove around the mall's upper floor. In 2012, the mall took in 14,680,00 in net income. In 2013, 5 Mile Captain Partners hired real estate developers Hines and map out a long-term plan for Lake Forest. A brand new child's play area opened the ground floor in front of the then JCPenney's on July 30th, 2013, with the original children's play area called Professional Frogs Courtyard. A nearby fountain in the center court were removed and tiled over in August 2013. In 2016, the mall took in 6,180,00 in net income. On August 22, 2017, Lake Forest Mall was sold at auction for $19.1 million, a fraction of $100 million price tag from 2012, spawning rumors of possible closure in the future. The auction came after the mall's owner, 5 Mills Capital, went into foreclosure. As of August 2017, the mall's general manager is Paul DeMarco. The Annapolis-based Pioneer Richardson Venues has Lake Forest under contract, which would not include the anchor stores in a potential purchase. But as of February 2018, the deal has not been closed. On February 28, 2019, it was announced that JCPenney's would be closing as part of a plan to close 27 stores in the U.S. The store closed on July 5, 2019. On June 5, 2019, Gaithersburg City Council member Ryan Strudel tweeted that Lord & Taylor was planning to close the store on September 15, 2019, as scheduled. This would leave Macy's and Sears as the only anchor stores remaining in the way of redevelopment considered by the Gaithersburg multi-government. In 2019, WRS Inc. Real Estate Investments purchased the mall from U.S. Bank, which had bought it in 2018. WRS Inc. is planning to redevelop the entire 100 acres. On August 31, 2019, it was announced that Sears would be closing its location at Lake Forest Mall as part of a plan to close 92 stores across the U.S. The store closed on December 1, 2019, leaving Macy's as the last and only anchor. 2002. The outdated Discovery sign on the second floor of the mall in March 2023 is on its last day of operation. The playground on the first floor of the mall on March 2023 on its last day of operation. It fronts an arcade that formerly was FYE. On October 20th, 2022, WRS Inc. announced that Lake Forest Mall would be demolished by 2024, which is more specific date being announced later in 2023. Unfinalized redevelopment proposal plans, including relocating the Lake Forest Transit Center and Park and Ride from alongside Lost Knife Road to Russell Avenue, townhouses, office buildings, a parking garage near the center of abandoned new stores, a movie theater, cleaning up 3 ponds to have a boardwalk built on top, and among others. On January 4th, 2023, it was announced that Macy's would be closing as part of a plan to close 4 stores nationwide, all inside unperforming indoor shopping malls. This left the mall with no anchors left, which basically turned it into a dead mall. The store closed on March 18, 2023, via liquidation sales that started on January 9, 2023. On January 17, 2023, at the hearing of the Lake Forest Mall redevelopment plan in the City Hall in Gaithersburg, Maryland, Kevin Rogers of WRS Inc. announced that Lake Forest Mall in its entirety would close on March 31, 2023 at 7 p.m. After 45 years of serving the nearly community, however, it is clearly not certain whether the mall would be demolished, should be redeveloped plans, or rejected. There is a small possibility that the mall building itself could be repurposed. On March 31, 2023, Lake Forest Mall permanently closed after 44 years of serving Gaithersburg and surrounding communities. The Gaithersburg City Mayor approved the plan of demolition, which is scheduled to begin in 2024. The land where Lake Forest currently stands will become a mixture of residential, retail, and commercial space. Number 9. Fort Armstead. Fort Armstead was built from 1897 to 1901 as part of the large-scale Endicott program. Other forts of this era in the coastal defense of Baltimore included Fort Howard, Fort Carroll, and Fort Smallwood. Fort Armstead is in the Hawkins Point section of the city. The fort is named for Major General George Armstead, 1780 to 1880, later promoted to colonel, commander of Fort McHenry. During the Battle of the Baltimore, the British Royal Navy attacked in September 1814 and the War of 1812. The battle inspired the writing of the poem Defense of Fort McHenry by Francis Scott Key, which, later set to the music The Star-Spangled Banner, became the American national anthem in 1931. The battle and bombardment has since been declared annual by the city, county, and state as Defense Day. Fort Armstead had 4 gun batteries. Battery Winich with one 12-inch M1888 disappearing gun. Battery McFarland with 3 8-inch M1888 disappearing guns. Battery Irons with 2 4.72-inch 45 caliber Armstrong guns on pedestal mounts, and Battery Mug with 2 3-inch M1898 guns on the marketing pedestal retractable mounts. Battery Winich was named for James Winich, a Maryland officer in the Revolutionary War and a general in the War of 1812. Battery Fallen was named for Daniel McFallen, an officer killed in the War of 1812. Irons were named after Joseph Irons, killed in the Mexican-American War. Battery Mug was named after Robert R. Mug, killed in action against the Samaritans. The fort also included 9 chessmates and commander stations to control a naval minefield in the harbor. Number 10. The Ma and Pa Railroad. The Maryland and Pennsylvania Railroad was established in 1901 by the merging of the Baltimore and Lee Railway with the York Southern. Originally a narrow gauge line, the railway traced to a membering 78-mile long route connecting to Baltimore and York, 2 cities only 45 highway miles apart. The line surveyors could hardly have chosen a more picturesque route. The main line traveled northeast from Baltimore across the rolling Maryland hills through Towson and Bel Air. At Delta, PA, the line turned sharply northward, hugging the banks of the Muddy Creek and passing through Fulton, Red Lion, and Dallastown on its climb into York. Although traffic was very dense, the Ma and Pa did serve as the independence link between rural communities and the outside world in the days before modern highways and 2 automobiles in every garage. It hauled furniture from Red Lion slate from Delta and milk from farms along the route, fostering the economic process of the whole region. The railroad also carried countless residents from their rural homes to the big city for jobs, shopping, and entertainment. Despite the fact that its cracked passenger train took 4 hours to travel 76 miles, the loss of a U.S. mail contract and the encouragement of the automobile-doomed passenger service were scrambled in 1954. The Maryland division from White Fort south was abandoned in 1958, but the Pennsylvania portion survived into the 80s. At that time, society stepped in to preserve a piece of this unique little railroad, which was so prominent in the history and development of the area. Thanks for watching my video. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel, and lastly, don't forget to hit the notification button so you'll know when I release new videos.